What's going on, guys, and welcome back to F1 2021 and my team career mode for round 14, the Singapore Grand Prix. And we start off today, we're going to do a personnel upgrade for the simulator because we haven't really done this a lot, and I think we need to not necessarily do it for Lundgaard because I don't think he's really going to be scoring many points, but more for when we do come to the end of the season and want to get a new driver. We're going to do that. We also did a marketing upgrade for pretty much the same reason. You know, a lot of the higher end drivers, they like to have, you know, better spec personnel and marketing. We've also just done a few little things there. We have a failed development upgrade for our tyre wear dampers, so we're going to redo that, and that's really the only thing that happens in this short break. Q1, I actually had a really good lap. I thought this was a really good Q1 lap, and although I will say right now we do get through to Q2, I'm actually going to show you the whole Q1 lap and then just show you bits of the Q2 lap because my Q2 lap was not that great. I'm going to be honest, it was not a very good lap. This was definitely a much better lap. I was just really on it, really enjoying the track. Singapore is a track that I do actually quite like. It's very tight. In a lot of ways, it's kind of like Monaco. Not quite as tight as Monaco, but and quite a lot quicker than Monaco. But it is another street circuit, like Monaco, like Baku, Azerbaijan. It is quite tight, quite twisty in points for sure, and yeah, you can hit a wall and have some issues. It's also another night race, which is awesome to see. Of course, first night race being Bahrain. This is our second night race, and then our third and final night race will be Abu Dhabi at the end of the season. So it's always nice to have a nighttime race. It's a different atmosphere, and I just really like the feel of it. But yeah, I do quite like Singapore. It's a track that I do quite like. I do struggle with it at times for sure. It is a fairly difficult track in a lot of ways. The curbs can be quite scary. I try and stay away from the curbs a lot. That one there especially, and that one there, if you go too over the curves, you can really have some issues. And then this final corner here, very quick final corner. But it's a very good lap time for Q1. P11 at the end there. We end up P13 at the end of Q1. So yeah, really happy with that lap time there. I think that was honestly some of the best lap time I could do on this track. P19 for Christian Lundgaard again. Seems to be around about where he sits. It would be nice to have him a little bit further up the order, but you know, maybe once we have that simulator personnel upgrade come through, that should improve his pace. So, you know, hopefully we'll see him potentially get into Q2 a little bit more often, because you know, I mean, our car is kind of on the verge of Q2. That's about where it's sitting. I believe we've dropped back below AlphaTauri for this race. We overtook them for the Russian Grand Prix. I believe we have fallen back behind them for this race, but it's still very close between us, AlphaTauri, and Alfa Romeo. So, you know, there's really not a lot in it. And yeah, my Q2 lap, like I said, just wasn't as good. I don't know, really just, I think I ended up being 6 or 7 tenths slower than I was in Q1 as we run quite a bit too wide out of the final corner as well. So it's not a great run, I'm going to be honest, not a great run in Q2. And of course we don't get through to Q3, but I was never expecting to. And it is P16, unfortunately, for Q2. That is where we'll be starting on the grid. So let's see how it goes in the race.
Against the spectacular backdrop of the Singapore skyline, Formula One returns once again to do battle in what tends to become something of an endurance race, with the notorious sauna-like temperatures in the cockpit making for an extremely physically challenging Grand Prix. We have a high risk of a safety car here today, as the abundance of tight corners mixed with these wet conditions could put a few cars off into the barriers. 23 turns then, 13 to the left and 10 to the right, make up the 3.1 mile lap of Marina Bay. And I'm joined once again by Anthony Davidson to bring you the lowdown for today's race. Let's have a chat about McLaren. What do you make of their performance so far this season?
Well, the atmosphere within that team seems very positive at the moment. Everyone seems like they're in great spirits and having a lot of fun doing what they do, and that's definitely contributed to the performances we've seen.
With the race minutes away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. Lewis Hamilton lines up on pole position, and it's Valtteri BOTTAS that completes the front row. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Ricciardo, Norris, Max Verstappen and Sainz, Leclerc, Perez, Vettel and Pierre Gasly, Ocon, Raikkonen, Yuki Tsunoda, Shaw, Giovinazzi, Russell, Christian Lundgaard, and Fernando Alonso. They've taken a grid penalty. Mazepin, Mick Schumacher, Stroll, and Nicholas Latifi. And with preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track.
Alright, so it is a wet Singapore Grand Prix. It's raining quite heavily here. We're actually on the wet tyres. So it's going to be an interesting start to the race. It is supposed to dry up towards the end though. So yeah, it will be interesting here. So starting off on the wet tyres, it's our first fully wet race, I believe, because we've only ever had inter conditions before for actual races. We don't have the greatest start. We actually start P14 due to a couple of penalties for, I believe, Alonso and Stroll. However, going into turn 1, we drop down to P16. I believe we're now back up to P15, but there's a lot of spray. It's very wet, and it's a little bit scary, I'm not going to lie, as we are kind of on the outside just about of Antonio Giovinazzi, but he's got a better run out of this corner. We're just trying to keep with him there. You know, maybe we'll duck to the outside for this corner as he goes quite defensive to the inside. We'd maybe give him a little bit of a love tap going into that corner there, but we just about keep it through. We go for a bit of a dive. They are quite slow into that corner, and we get the position on Giovinazzi. We're up back into P14 from where we started, so it's been an okay start to the race, nothing spectacular for sure. We've now got Kimi Raikkonen, the other Alfa Romeo, in front of us, as very slow through this hairpin with all the cars in front. We are right on his gearbox coming through this section here, as you can just see all the spray everywhere as we go. We have a look on the outside of the next corner on Kimi Raikkonen. We're going to hang it all the way around the outside. We're still side by side, however we've got the better run. We have got the position on the Iceman, and we're now up into P13. Yuki Tsunoda and Esteban Ocon up ahead, the two Alfa Romeos behind us. So I'd say all in all, you know, off the start line, it was not a great start, but throughout the rest of this first lap, we've made up a position there. We've made up a couple of positions from what we lost at the start, and we're up into P13, going on to the second lap here. So yeah, very treacherous wet conditions, lots of spray. Pretty difficult to keep the car straight, but we've just got to keep going and get our head down and get some positions. Watching Daniel Ricciardo off the front here, he seems to always be getting such great starts. That third position car, always getting great starts. He gets Bottas off the line, and then he actually has a little look up the inside of, well, it's actually on the outside of that bit, of Lewis Hamilton. However, he can't quite get that position, and now he's there with Bottas. However, he has just about got the position on Bottas. Daniel Ricciardo up into second place again. He did this in the last race too, so great starts from the Australian in this season and in this race. As we go on to lap 3 here, we're catching up to Yuki Tsunoda up ahead. We want to get the position on him. AlphaTauri, they're pretty much level on us with R&D, so you know, they're one of the cars along with the Alfa Romeos we're fighting. Pierre Gasly is a little bit further up the road just because he's kind of outperforming that car a little bit, but Yuki Tsunoda is definitely a driver who we can overtake. Quite difficult in these wet conditions to overtake though, and Singapore, a pretty difficult track to overtake on. It's tight and twisty like Monaco. I wouldn't say it's quite as difficult as Monaco to overtake because it's got a lot more straights and stuff, but it is still a difficult track, and in the wet as well. I mean, don't you love it how we had Monaco, which was wet, and now we've had Singapore, probably the second twistiest track, and that's also wet. Like, we're getting a lot of wet races this season, which I guess is good in a sense, but I'm getting a little bit sick of the wet races. I would like a run of dry ones from now on, to be honest. I mean, this is like our 4th or 5th wet race of the season, so would be nice to have a bit more dry, but I'm not going to complain too much, as we're kind of now just stuck behind Tsunoda. It's really difficult to get past in these wet conditions on this track. You know, you've got the dirty air and the rain and the spray, and it's just all a little bit scary. I'm not gonna lie, as I believe now there's some cars coming into the pits. My engineer is waffling on about some other shit that I don't even know, and then he's like, oh, how about you check the MFD right now? So I do. He wants us to change on to Inters. However, everybody's pretty much just done it. We're up into P5 now, by the looks of it. My teammates come into the pits. we should have come into the pits that race, that lap, because Raikkonen's come into the pits. And if we're now on Inter's conditions, as we put the power down a bit too early, very, very scary moment there. We almost completely binned it. We should have come in on the lap before, but my engineer told me too late, which means that we're now coming in and we're probably going to get undertaken by Kimi Raikkonen here. As we look ahead, he is just coming up on the right now. We'll just about see him go past through this first corner here. There he is on the right, and he's done it. Kimi Raikkonen has made the undercut work on us because we came in for that pit stop too early, too late. We've really missed out there. Yeah, bit of a blunder from the team there, to be honest. They should have told me earlier than that. I mean, I guess people in front, I mean, there was quite a lot of cars in front that were coming into the pits, so he should have told me. Instead, he was telling me something about, oh, there's some debris on the track. It's like, I don't really care. Just get me in for my pit stop. But he didn't, and we've now been undertaken by Kimi Raikkonen, so we've got to make that position up again. As we look at a battle further up the grid here, Carlos Sainz is right on the back of Max Verstappen. This is the battle for, well, it was 9th place, but I think they're going to make up some positions due to pit stops. And Carlos Sainz, he is looking up the inside of the next corner with Max Verstappen as Charles Leclerc comes out behind them as well out of his pit stop. And I believe these two have jumped Leclerc off with the pit stop, you know, them doing their pit stop one lap earlier, as they're going down the straight here, and Max Verstappen has just about held on to the position. Carlos Sainz can't quite do anything about it just yet, but now Verstappen has 2 Ferraris behind him, so yeah, interesting to see what happens there in regards to team orders and stuff. As we go on to lap 10, we've caught up to Raikkonen quite a lot here, but like I said before, it's so difficult to overtake. I mean, the track is a bit drier, but I mean, you can see just by looking at it, it's still raining relatively heavily, and it's still wet. It's still very much wet, and it's difficult to overtake. We've got a pretty big gap to our teammate, actually, Christian Lundgaard behind us, doing a pretty good job up there in P15. He's made up a few positions off the start, but it's just so difficult to overtake on this track in these conditions, and we're just kind of bunkered up behind Kimi Raikkonen here, just trying to do anything. As he goes a bit wide into this corner, we carry great momentum through, but then we give him a little bit of a nudge. Unfortunately, he was kind of right in the path where we were coming through. That was an opportunity to get the position on him, but unfortunately we couldn't quite make it work. And then there's yellow flags behind us. What has happened there? Is it a crash? Is it just a retirement? Not quite sure yet. There we go. It's Antonio Giovinazzi, the other Alfa Romeo. He's out of the session with a mechanical failure, as we see him here just pulling off to the side. Pretty good place to park there, you know, way out of the way, not an issue, doesn't bring out the safety car, so that's good. But yeah, that's one Alfa Romeo down, and we're chasing after the other one. Kimi Raikkonen, he's got good pace in the wet. He's a good wet race driver, wet track driver, however you want to call it. We actually set the purple first sector there on this lap, so we're really pushing to get past Raikkonen on this lap.
The track is drying, but it's going to take a while to clear the standing water off the line. Don't start thinking about slicks just yet.
Yep, so I can actually tell just by looking, it is getting a little bit dry. It's a bit difficult on this game. I mean, it still looks very wet, but there's not as much spray as there was before, and it is going to slow down and start getting dry as we set our fastest lap so far. So that's showing right there that the track is definitely drying at this point. George Russell is now out of the session. I didn't get a replay of this, but it was just another mechanical failure. So poor Russell, that's like 5 DNFs for him in this season so far, which is just crazy. George Russell not having a good season, that is for sure. As we come on to lap 15 now, where once again we're just absolutely pushing here. We have another strategy change here. It's basically just to say that come in for the Inters 1 lap later, which I am going to accept. However, I don't think we're going to be doing that because I do believe that we will be onto the dries relatively soon. Still a little ways off yet, but it won't be long until we're onto the dry tyres. And then we're just looking here, just from a different camera. There wasn't a whole lot going on throughout the middle part of this race, to be honest, with me. Or with anyone, to be honest. I'm really just trying to catch up to Raikkonen here. We're just kind of stuck behind him, and it's so difficult to overtake here that we're really just stuck, and we've got a massive 11.5 second gap to Lundgaard behind. Sonoda's like a good, what is that, 5 seconds up the road, or is that 3 and a bit seconds? I can't quite tell. He's a little way up the road. I think we're catching up to him a little bit, but we're kind of just in no man's land, me and Raikkonen here. I mean, I do at least have him to fight, which is good, but ultimately, yeah, it would have been nice to be around a few other cars. As we come onto the end of lap 16 here, we're just trying to catch up to these guys. It's not quite the changeover point for the tyres yet, but we're definitely getting there. As we look further up ahead, off a big train, we have Lando Norris at the head of this train. He's got Verstappen, the 2 Ferraris of Sainz and Leclerc, Perez, and I believe Gasly is also behind there as well. Massive train. I think Sebastian Vettel is just off there as well. So it's a big train from P4 all the way down to P10. A big train of cars, and I'm actually starting to lose my voice a little bit here, so I'm sorry about that. My voice is getting a bit croaky. I've just recorded one video before this, and now I'm recording this one. So yeah, nice little battle going on there. We go on to lap 19 though, and now people are coming in for their dry tyres, and once again, my team's stuffed up. Everybody's coming in for dry tyres. Well, not everybody, but most people are coming in for dry tyres, and we haven't come in. I mean, we haven't made up that many positions here, but our main rival in this race, Kimi Raikkonen, came in that lap earlier. We didn't. We're now going on to the mediums. It's going to be a race to the end on mediums, and well, we'll see him come past in a second. Kimi Raikkonen, he is way ahead of us now, because he got the undercut on us on the initial first pit stop. He was already ahead of us at this point. He's just extended that gap even more as we get a big moment out of that corner, getting a little bit frustrated on the power. Also running dry tyres on a still somewhat, wet track, but it is definitely drying out by this point. And at this point here, as you can see, purple first sector. Once again, I am absolutely putting my foot down. I'm putting my head forward, and I am just absolutely going for it. Just trying to catch up to Kimi Raikkonen. It's actually Sergio Perez in front of him. He's found his way down the order. I don't know what's happened to him, but maybe just a bad pit stop or something. But he's now down in what is P12. So Perez out of the points at the moment. There is a fairly big train up ahead though, as in within a few laps we do catch up to the back of Kimi Raikkonen. We're just I think we're just under a second behind him now. Really catching up to the back of Raikkonen, and we want to. It's going to be a push to get into the points this race, but I want to at least get past Raikkonen, because we've kind of had a bit of a squabble with him the whole time. And if we didn't make that mistake on the first pit stop, and if we didn't make the mistake on the second pit stop as well, we would have probably been ahead of him here as we clatter the barrier a little bit there, a little bit rough there. I'm going to be honest. I'm just checking my LFD, whatever you want to call it there. Yeah, we're pushing it quite hard at this point. On lap 27, we are now right up the back of Kimi Raikkonen. We've got DRS on him. We're going to see if we can make a move to the outside. He goes quite defensive on the inside. He's keeping it there, though, as we're going to try and do a little bit of a switchback on him. We're just about side by side with him. Going into the next corner, however, he's just ahead at the moment. We are going to get the better run out of this corner, though. However, he's going to try and stick it around the outside. He can't quite keep it there, though. But now he has the better run. He has a really good run. He actually turns into us going into this next corner. I was going completely straight there. That was just him turning in on me a little bit too early there. And yeah, probably cost him the place. I mean, it was a bit ambitious to go for a dive for him there as we look back at a replay here. But yeah, he did make contact with the middle of our car, to be honest. Yeah, kind of the barge board sort of area. So no damage came up there, but we could have got damage that we couldn't have been able to repair here with that little shunt. We don't really see the shunt here as the camera kind of cuts away from it, but yeah, he tries to keep it round, but then he kind of concedes the position and lets us go through, and we're up into P12. We've got past Kimi Raikkonen. He's our main rival for the race. Now up ahead, Tsunoda's actually doing us a little bit of a blessing here, as he is holding up Esteban Ocon and Sergio Perez behind. he's got a mechanical failure at this point. I've had a thing come through the radio saying Tsunoda has got an issue, so he is going to be slow, and he's holding up these guys quite a lot here. He is currently in P10, he's in the final points paying position. However, that's not going to last for long. Esteban Ocon dives to the inside for turn 1, and he will now be in the top 10 position. And now it's just a case of whether Sergio Perez can also get past Tsunoda. And sure enough, on the next lap, lap 28, we see just ahead of us, we've now caught right up to the back of these guys. Perez goes to the inside, does the same move that Ocon did on Tsunoda before. You can see how much further up the grid Ocon has got though, just in that one lap there. And yep, he is now past. Perez can go off into the distance to try and catch Ocon in these last couple of laps. And now we're going to see if we can get past Tsunoda. That'll put us up into P12. We've got the DRS now. We've got the slipstream on him. He's got DRS on Perez in front, but it's not really going to matter because he is quite a bit slower here. He puts up a good fight. We kind of switch to the left from the left to the right. Sorry, I'm getting my left and rights completely mixed up. And we get the position on Tsunoda, and then he drops back behind Raikkonen as well. Final lap of the race, another purple first sector here. We're just kind of trying to follow Perez through. Wasn't really expecting to overtake Perez and beat him in this race, but I thought we can coop up behind him. Lewis Hamilton wins the Singapore Grand Prix, so that's 2 wins in a row for Hamilton. Maybe this is the downfall of Bottas. I don't know, he's still a hell of a way ahead in the championship, but Hamilton is now putting up a bit more of a fight as Bottas did actually finish the race. We have a bit of a scary final corner there. We come home in, I believe it was P12 behind Sergio Perez. I think it was a pretty decent race. I mean, big issues there at the start with the pit stops. Team really messed up the pit stops twice, but still a decent finishing.
Another historic win under their belts. Well done to the team at Mercedes. Anthony Davidson, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
Well, they certainly stood out as a driver with tons of confidence on the track. I think their ability to keep their cool, even during some of the more hectic parts of the race, meant they were able to capitalise on the mistakes of other drivers, giving them the opportunity to make their way to the top spot with ease.
So after a magnificent race, we can now see the drivers making their way to the podium. Once again, it's the Silver Arrows who take top spot, a well-earned victory for Mercedes.
So there we go, Lewis Hamilton wins the Singapore Grand Prix, Daniel Ricciardo comes home in 2nd place, and Valtteri BOTTAS down in 3rd, so he still gets on the podium, but it's 2 non-wins in a row for Bottas, which, I mean, is kind of normal when you think about it in real life, but in this career mode of ours, Bottas has been dominating the championship, so maybe now Hamilton can reel him in a little bit. It's going to take a lot from Hamilton to bring this championship back, but he's doing a pretty good job at the moment. We finished P12, Lundgaard finishes P15, so you know what, that's a pretty decent finish from him as well. I think he's done a pretty good job there. So good finish for the team for sure. No points, which is a bit disappointing. Esteban Ocon, he doesn't overtake us, but he's now level on points with us. 20 points for me, 20 points for him. So Ocon's kind of one of our main rivals now. That Alpine, quite a bit quicker than our car, but we're still going to give it a shot. And then no changes in the constructors here at all. Anyway, that's it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please go ahead, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.